So before we have our discussion, just want to take a moment of silence for the victims of the supermarket shooting in Buffalo: Celestine Cheney, Roberta Drury, Andre McNeil, Catherine Massey, Margus Morrison, Hayward Patterson, Aaron Salter Jr., Geraldine Talley, Ruth Whitfield, Pearl Young. May your souls rest in peace. Moment of silence. All right, so to be brown in America at this time, at this day and age, one would argue to say that not much has changed, right? Welcome to the Uncommon Bond podcast. Due to the events over the weekend, I just felt it was appropriate to have a discussion, not to over talk the rhetoric that we've all heard, the videos that we've seen, but to have these conversations about us and where we stand in this country as Black and brown people. I'm not gonna say the coward's name. I will refer to him as the racist or the coward. His mission, according to reports, were to save the white race. He had many messages written on his weapon of choice. Took a drive to, a lower income area so that he could start killing. All right, so beyond that, right? So I took a class in school in my first year. It's probably the only class that I've always reflected upon. I still have all my notes. I have the pamphlets, the leaflets, the worksheets, everything. It was called Social Problems in Black America. And in this class, the professor, he had an exercise, and he did it probably in the first or second time that we met as a group. He had all the Black people, or all the melanated, all the minorities step out of the room, and only the Caucasian class members stayed in the room. At that time, he gave them about 10 minutes to write on the board things that they had heard about us, maybe thought about us, believed to be true. And they literally just wrote them. We talked about it, of course, beforehand, and so that there would not be too many hard feelings, although no matter what, when you do an exercise like that, when we came back in the classroom, the things that I saw on that board were shocking. I mean, it ranged from watermelon and chicken to poor projects, welfare, single parent background, great athletes, so many things. And of course, back then, I ain't gonna tell you what year, but back then, of course, like cell phones were not as advanced. So if I could take a time machine back in the time, the only thing I would do was take a picture of what was written on that board, because it speaks to the world, not even the world, but the country we live in, and the things that are wrongfully fed into people about other people. We were all kids at the time, right? Teenagers, fresh out of high school, just trying to figure out our way in this world. I probably met the most white people in my existence during that first year of school. Um, but racism, nationalism, is it's in the fabric of American culture. I actually got a message from a former player of mine. I coached high school football for a long time, uh, Lorenzo Segura, and he said that racism is literally baked in. And I thought about that reference, baked in. Like when you bake something in, you make a cake and you know the ingredients are baked in. That's you can't get that out, right? It's hard. I mean, and you can't. You know, you literally can't get that out, right? So we have these wrong beliefs, these thoughts, things that were either taught or people picked up on their own. But you know, of course, racism is taught. But to see what that coward did, the racist, and he then pleads not guilty to me within hours. It wasn't even like it's like what? How are you able to even do this? And I'm ignorant to a lot of things. I always admit that. How are you able to plead not guilty on the weekend, right after you did this, and live streamed it? Like the fact that legally he could plead not guilty is astonishing to me, right? To say the least. If you're black or brown and you're not armed, the police come to get you, you might get shot. If you're white, heavily armed, you'll get peacefully arrested. And we've seen this meme, not even meme, I don't want to make light of it, but this picture shown on social media and various different outlets, like how we are killed while they are peacefully arrested. And in even one instance, taken to get food on the way to prison. It's just there's really no words to say about it. There's no tears, right? Like how many more tears can we cry? How many more times can we mourn, right? And the victims' families, I pray for them because there's really no way to get that back. Finally, our president, Joe Biden, took a trip, of course, you gotta go over there, whether he want to or not. And I'm not accusing him of not wanting to go, but you're the president, you gotta go. But look at the actions, right? So Asian hate crimes from 2019 to 2020 rose from 158 to 279, right? So then $5 billion bipartisan anti-Asian hate crime law passed. Boom, let's do it. Same period of time, hate crimes against Blacks rose from 1,927 to 2,871. No law passed, anti-hate crimes. I don't know how many of these shootings need to take place, whether it's by law enforcement or random Joe Schmo, the racist. But how much more of this are we supposed to take? Now, during this tape, in this video, the racist gets out of his car, begins shooting. And at one point in that video, literally points it at somebody, realizes that they're white, pulls it up and says, I'm sorry, and keeps going, spares his life, and then goes on to, kill more brown people. Now, course, there's going to be the mentally ill slant. They're going to love to run that ragged. So let's not even have that conversation, right? We all know it. And if we don't, you can look it up because this is not what it's about. It's really about what are we doing, right? Are we teaching our children, our Black and brown children, what to be aware of, what to do? One thing is we can't teach them to be small or invisible. We want them to be proud. We want them to walk with confidence. We want them to be aware. We don't want them to walk in fear, right? But the same way we teach our Black and brown daughters and our sons how to behave during an arrest, it is very important that we start teaching them signs to look for or things to do when random racist cowards show up at the fast food, at the movies, at the grocery store. And it sounds crazy, but it's important now that one, I think, and I don't think that this is panic at all. I think that when we're in the grocery store, we're doing things or whatever, and we might have our little ones and they may, oh, daddy, I want some cookies, or I want, this, that, and third. And, family member of mine made a comment like, yo, I'm not going to do that no more. We got to stay together. We got to go to that aisle, pick up whatever they want. I'm not sending my child. We're not splitting up. And I thought that was a profound statement, right? Can we do that anymore? Like, can we really take the chance that a normal trip to the grocery store, we need to stay together, right? We need to know and tell our children where the exits are so that they know where to go as they grow up and are, going to the grocery store by themselves, where the bathroom is in case they need to hide, or just like where certain areas are of safety, how to get out, maybe, certain routes of escape just in case certain things go down. It's important now. Like, we can't dodge it. I think that there was a time, and I have a daughter, and there was a time where, I didn't want her to learn, and she didn't want to learn, how to hold a gun, shoot it, things of that nature. And, now I have to revisit that myself. I go to the range and I've learned how to do that. And that's not something that I was like brought up doing, right? I didn't like shoot guns when I was younger. Her mother has started to learn. And at this point, I think it's very important that we start teaching our children. And I'm sure many of y'all will be like, oh, I've been teaching my kids. Well, great. But there's a lot of us that really didn't want to subscribe to that type of behavior, or not even say behavior, but just that way of thinking. Like, if my child doesn't, like my daughter at one point, I said, yo, what do you think we should go? And she was like, no, I'm not comfortable. And I let it be. You're not comfortable, no problem. But now I have to rethink that, right? We have to protect ourselves. And this is not me sitting here saying we have to start shooting people, but I'm just saying we need to be able to protect ourselves at all costs, because it's obvious for years that we're being hunted, and it's sad. So the conversations that we need to have with our children are: one, don't be small, don't be intimidated, but be aware. Don't be afraid. Don't be fearful, but be aware, right? When a cop pulls you over, be aware. Call somebody when you pull over, put it on speaker, and be aware. Keep your hands on the steering wheel. When instructed to do something, tell them, listen, I'm going to go with my right hand into the glove compartment to get my license and registration. Let whoever's on the other end listen. I think that's an important lesson. And a lot of people think they teach their children the right way until it's too late. But, unfortunately, this is the time and that we live in. And it's sad because I had this discussion before on a previous episode where with the other guys, and we were talking about football. And in the back of the end zone, there was a writing about stop racism at a football game. In 2022, we literally have slogans in the end zones speaking about stopping racism. So do we really gotta say any more? Like the fact that we have to prominently display that as some sort of hashtag, some sort of, slogan. Stop racism. By the way, enjoy the game and stop racism. It's truly sad that, where we are right now as a society. And we may have a lot of answers. We may not have many. We may not have any solution, but I just know that it's disheartening to know that at any given time, at any given point, anywhere, we may be a victim of random acts of violence just because of our skin color. And it's 2022. So, don't please don't ask me why. Like, there's been times where, 4th of July, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, happy 4th of July. Or they're, why aren't you buying any this? Or why aren't you doing that? And I'm like, because I don't celebrate that, man, because that ain't my independence. I'm not celebrating that. Our very own, not the Pledge of Allegiance, but the song that is sung before games and any type of gathering, even graduations, is a racist song, right? It had racial undertones, which they then tried to take out. But the song itself is racist, right? You could do your research on Mr. Francis Scott Key, I believe the author of the not the Pledge of Allegiance, but the Star Spangled Banner, if I'm not mistaken. That's it. So, what are we gonna do with all this hatred that is taught? You know, a riot isn't gonna change anything, and we marched and marched, and what next, right? All the conversation can be as proud as you can be about who you are, stand strong, 10 toes down. Um, of course, we're gonna have disagreements amongst ourselves, but we gotta look out for each other. We gotta check in on one another, and we don't gotta do better. I'm sorry, they do, and they still haven't. They still won't. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out, but it's just sad that in this day and age, somebody could live stream, vicious murdering, slaughter of our people, and literally believe he can just say, oh, "I'm not guilty." It's a shame, and it's bad because you become numb to it. But what I will suggest to any parent, Black and brown mothers and fathers, anybody, there's a book, right? Tanishi Coates, I hope I'm saying it right, Between the World and Me. And this book is literally just a letter from a Black man to his son, trying to explain to him, the world that we live in as Black and brown people. Great book. I suggest you give it a read, let your children read it. It is literally a tale of our tears and of our struggles. And I just felt like I needed to say a couple words about what happened without going too into detail because, our trauma is real and we don't need to overdo it. But just plan accordingly, think it through, have conversations with your kids. My daughter cried about it. She wasn't happy with what she saw and it affected her. I'm sure that many of you have children, whether they're very young or very old. It's never too soon, which is sad, but it's never too soon to talk to your children about what it means to be us in this country and our responsibility to one another and the way we need to move when we're outside. Um, never gets never gets old. I guess this story of racism, and for as much as we celebrate, certain holidays and wish things were better and pray for better days. It's funny because a lot of times people will say, Martin Luther King was died. No, he was murdered, right? So on MLK Day, he died for this, he died, but he didn't die. He was murdered for the causes that he was fighting for. Juneteenth is coming. Finally, that is being acknowledged. Interesting. It took somebody getting choked to death with a knee on his neck for them to understand that, oh, maybe Juneteenth is something we should, give them that. What's next? Who knows? But what can we do? Peace and love. Uncommon Bound Podcast. What are you gonna do? I can't say. Be safe out here, man. Take care of your family. Take care of your loved ones. Take care of yourself. And just stay ready. That's all you can do.